Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Zoe Hastings. Zoe Hastings was born on November 21, 1996 in Kansas, the oldest of 5 siblings, including 3 sisters and a brother. Zoe helped her parents take care of her younger siblings, willing to cancel any plans if her parents needed help. Her parents were very religious, so the family spent a lot of time at church. At some point, Zoe's family moved to Dallas, where she attended a high school specializing in the arts and creativity. This environment nurtured her passion for painting and encouraged her to participate in school theater productions. Outside of school, Zoe continued to pursue her creativity by working at a local art studio in Dallas. She also worked as a lifeguard at a community pool during the summer months. After graduating from high school, Zoe had the opportunity to attend some of the country's top universities. Instead, she decided to postpone her studies and focus on her church. In October 2015, at the age of 18, Zoe was preparing to go on a church mission trip and was looking forward to it. On Sunday, October 11th, she planned to attend a service where they would discuss the details of the trip. Zoe took the family car, promised her parents she would be home for dinner, and left home around 4:40 p.m. The church was only a few miles away, and her parents expected her to return around 6:30 p.m. However, as time passed and Zoe did not return home for dinner, her family began to worry. This was out of character for her, and they had not been able to reach her via text or phone call. They tried to contact her friends and family members, thinking she might have stopped by to visit, but no one had seen her. As their concern turned to alarm, her parents called the church, hoping to find an explanation for her absence. Instead, they were shocked to learn that Zoe had not attended the service. Her parents grew even more concerned and decided to contact the police. They called 911. But for some reason, the police did not come to their house, so her parents drove to the police station themselves, filed a report, and began searching for their daughter. Despite following the route from their home to the church several times, they found no trace of Zoe. The search continued throughout the night. When morning came, Zoe's mother remembered that her daughter's iPhone had a tracking app that could reveal her location. Using the app, they discovered that Zoe's phone was near a small creek, just a few hundred yards from the church. Her parents immediately went to the location. They were horrified to see a large number of police cars, as well as ambulances and emergency services. When they approached one of the police officers, they explained that they were looking for their daughter, and the officer informed them that there had been a car accident a few hours earlier. Police told her parents that a dog walker called the police after being alerted to the accident by a passerby. The passerby told the dog walker that there was an injured woman near the creek. The dog walker then ran to the scene, found the woman lying in a pool of blood, and called 911. The officer quickly identified the deceased as Zoe Hastings. They immediately realized that she had not died in an accident. It was clear from the first glance that she had been the victim of a murder. Zoe's body was found a few hundred yards from the partially submerged minivan in the creek. A significant amount of blood was found near her body, along with multiple cuts to her neck. Her skirt had been pulled up and her underwear pulled down, suggesting that the killer may have also sexually assaulted her. Zoe's parents attempted to approach their daughter but were stopped by police. After investigating, the police discovered some important evidence. Notably, all the doors of the minivan, except for the driver's side door, were locked. This detail suggests that the perpetrator may have driven or approached Zoe directly at the scene. A bloody knife, believed to be the murder weapon, was found by the police near the creek, near an embankment under the bridge. Zoe's smartphone provided important information that helped the police reconstruct the sequence of events. GPS data showed that she arrived at the creek at 5:01 p.m., just 20 minutes after leaving her home. It appears that she was killed shortly after arriving. In addition, the police also discovered that after leaving her home, Zoe made one stop. She went to a DVD rental service near the local Walgreens to return a movie. While forensic experts were examining the body, police decided to look for potential witnesses who were in or near the store at the same time as Zoe. After interviewing several people, they found two potential witnesses. One was Lester Clark, who worked at a nearby tattoo parlor. He had come into the store around 4:45 p.m. to buy cigarettes and saw a woman near the DVD rental area. He then saw her walk back to the parking lot and try to get into a white pickup truck. A man approached her, stopped her from opening the door, said something, and then the two got into the truck and drove away. When the police showed Lester a photo of Zoe, he said the woman looked similar. Although he found the scene quite tense, he didn't think much of it, as it didn't seem like anything bad had happened. The witness described the man as short, stocky, and African American. However, Lester was too far from the parking lot to notice any other features. Later, as it got dark, he saw the man walking toward the store alone. A second witness, Gary Whitman, a homeless man, reported a similar incident. At approximately 4:45 p.m., he was standing across the parking lot when he saw a woman approaching a white pickup truck. A man suddenly appeared from behind her, blocking her from getting into the vehicle. The man then showed the woman something he had taken from his pocket. The woman then got into the car and moved into the passenger seat, while the man got into the driver's seat and drove away. Gary described the suspect similarly to Lester. While police were interviewing witnesses, forensic experts made several important discoveries. A forensic pathologist examined the victim and found a small amount of male DNA, not enough for a full DNA analysis. This finding supported the theory that the perpetrator had sexually assaulted Zoe before killing her. A separate examination of Zoe's car did not find anyone else's fingerprints on the door or steering wheel. This was surprising, as witness testimony suggested that the suspect may have driven the victim out of the store's parking lot in her small car. However, police believe that the killer wiped the steering wheel and door handles after the crime to remove any evidence. Several hairs were found on Zoe's body, but they were too small for experts to extract a complete DNA sample. However, a breakthrough came when they tested a knife found near the crime scene. A DNA sample was found on the knife and uploaded to the FBI database, resulting in a match. The DNA belonged to Antonio Cochran, 34, a man with a lengthy criminal record that began as a teenager, including arrests for burglary, assault, and home invasion. In 2014, Antonio had a history of being suspected of multiple crimes. One notable case involved his girlfriend's 17-year-old daughter, who accused him of sexual assault. She reported that Antonio offered to drive her, but instead of taking her to her destination, he drove her to a remote wooded area. There, he threatened to kill her if she tried to escape and then attacked her. After his arrest, Antonio claimed that the encounter was consensual. The case went to trial, where the prosecution failed to present enough evidence to prove Antonio's guilt, resulting in a not guilty verdict. Police identified Antonio as the prime suspect after finding his DNA on the knife and arrested him. During questioning, Antonio repeatedly denied any involvement in the murder. To gather further evidence, police compared Antonio's DNA to hair and semen found on Zoe. However, the samples were too small to extract a full DNA profile. Police analyzed Antonio's smartphone and discovered a series of text messages that revealed his unstable mental state on the day of the murder. At 1:48 a.m. the day before Zoe died, Antonio texted a friend who lived with him, saying he was moving out and would never see her again. Later that day, at 2:07 p.m., he texted his ex-girlfriend to say that his stepmother had died. He mentioned that she had died right in front of him and that he was having a hard time coming to terms with the loss. In the following hours, Antonio sent 2 text messages to another woman, saying that he had spent the night drinking, driving around the city and crying. These were his last text messages before Zoe died. That evening, at 9:30 p.m., Antonio texted his friend again, expressing his confusion about what to do with his life and lamenting that things had gotten worse. The next day, Antonio sent another text to his ex-girlfriend, saying that his life was over and that she would soon find out why. A check of Antonio's browser search history showed that he had visited local news websites more than 30 times before his arrest, often checking the crime section. Notably, 5 of these visits were to read articles specifically about Zoe's case. Data from Antonio's smartphone provided another lead for police. Experts retrieved GPS data from his phone and discovered that at 4:34 p.m., his phone connected to a cell tower that covered the area of a store. This coincided with the time Zoe was there, but this data wasn't considered strong evidence as it only indicated that his phone was within a few miles of the tower. The police discovered that Antonio had started working at a grocery store just 3 days before the incident. However, he had not shown up for work on Monday, the day after the murder, without providing any explanation. Despite the long list of circumstantial evidence against Antonio, the only strong evidence was his DNA on the handle of the knife. However, such evidence is usually not enough to convict because simply holding the knife does not prove murder. For example, he could have used the knife in other situations and someone else could have used it to commit the crime. But the police could not find any other evidence, so they decided to proceed and take the case to court. The prosecution presented an account of the events that took place that day. According to their account, when Zoe returned to her car in the parking lot, Antonio approached her, pulled out a knife, and threatened her to get in the car. He then took control of the car and drove away. The prosecution's case also included text messages that Antonio had sent before the murder, which showed that he was distraught due to the death of his stepmother. According to police, Antonio had been drinking heavily when he decided to kidnap and attack Zoe. He chose Zoe only because she was in the parking lot at the time. Antonio drove to a secluded creek surrounded by trees, where he forced Zoe out of the car, attacked her, and stabbed her 6 times in the neck. He then tried to drive into the creek to hide the evidence. But it was only partially submerged. Antonio wiped the steering wheel and door handles to remove fingerprints before fleeing the scene. According to the first witness, a man resembling Antonio was seen walking back to the store's parking lot that evening. However, the defense argued that most of the evidence did not directly link Antonio to the crime. For example, a hair and semen analysis only showed that Antonio could not be ruled out as the source, but did not confirm his involvement. The defense also argued that the DNA on the knife did not necessarily mean that Antonio was involved in the murder. They suggested that Antonio could have come into contact with the knife in another situation, such as when he worked at a movie theater and had to collect items left by customers. Furthermore, if someone else had used the knife from the movie theater to kill someone, it would have been difficult for them to avoid getting Antonio's DNA off the handle. The defense questioned the credibility of Gary, a homeless man who was the second witness, because he had an active arrest warrant for violating the terms of his parole. The defense attempted to exclude his testimony, but the prosecution disagreed. They argued that Gary's voluntary contact with the police, despite orders from him, showed that he genuinely wanted to help. Gary said he was just trying to do the right thing, even though he knew he would be arrested. Antonio's attorneys attempted to establish an alibi for their client, claiming that he was helping a friend at the time of Zoe's murder. However, they failed to present substantial evidence to support this claim. The prosecution initially sought the death penalty for Antonio, but as the trial progressed, it became clear that the evidence was not strong enough to achieve that outcome. The prosecution subsequently dropped its request for the death penalty. After a lengthy deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict and Antonio was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Zoe's parents expressed their gratitude to the police and those involved in the trial for bringing justice to their daughter's case.